man. So there is always something going on in the world of superheroes and comic books. And particularly right now with the MCU, there's always a lot going on. Now, I know that the title for this particular episode is just a She-Hulk shorty breakdown. But I do want to ask you this. Since the last time we spoke, have you seen Werewolf by Night yet?
I have not seen it yet, nor have I listened to your episode because I don't want to get spoiled. And I guess this is where we could also segue into the spoiler warning for She-Hulk. So,
Yep.
Spoiler warning for the entirety of the She-Hulk Disney Plus show.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, for sure, yeah. So if you have not seen Werewolf by Night yet, I won't say anything then because our review is a full spoiler review for that show that we did. But I will say this, I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I've heard good things. And for you guys to both enjoy, Kevin liked it also?
Yeah.
So for you guys to both like something that Marvel put out, I mean, that's rare lately.
Today, yeah.
Right, yeah. Phase 4, I mean.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare occurrence.
Yeah.
The last time that happened was Spider-Man, probably?
Spider-Man, yep.
Yeah.
And that was a year ago almost now.
Yeah, and that's a banger. You can't like No Way Home or not like No Way Home. I mean,
all right. At that point, like I feel like you need to reevaluate some things.
Yeah, it's like you just hate joy.
Yeah,
you just detest it at every level.
Right. I'll go ahead and put this out here too. What I'm about to reference is not technically available yet, but I'll go ahead and plug it here, and I'll plug it again when it becomes available. But recently, Kevin and I, we were on another podcast called the Superhero Show, and it is a podcast, as you guys can guess, about superhero shows. These guys have literally covered like every episode of every superhero show ever. And we recently did like a little collaboration, and Kevin and I, we had the opportunity to be on there and to discuss with them the MCU and how we got started, and what our kind of motivations were and all that. It was a phenomenal episode. I believe it'll be out in a couple of weeks, and again, we'll let you guys know. But in the meantime, guys, go ahead and definitely check out that podcast, the Superhero Show. Those guys are pretty damn awesome over there, 100%. But
that sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I checked out their their podcast beforehand, and man, they have a lot of fun over there, and they do a lot of good stuff. But they did. I'll go ahead and spoil something here. It's a small something, but we'll go ahead and spoil something from that episode that we did. They left us with a challenge. Ryan in particular, he left us with a challenge, that being for us to rank or to give our rankings on the Disney Plus MCU shows. So we did something similar almost a year ago, but there's been a lot of content to come out since then. So it would be a good time here soon to go ahead and like reevaluate that. So you guys can look for that here shortly. The most difficult part, at least for Kevin and I, to put this list together is I'm going to have to get Kevin to watch some more of these shows.
Right. I was going to say, like, I think he'll, so obviously, like, what's number one and why is it what if, right?
Okay. Not spoiling anything, but he gave, the main host for the Superhero Show, he gave us his rankings, and then he wanted us to kind of, commentate on it and kind of give our thoughts on it. And What If was not number one, and we were very.
Did he have Hawkeye as number one?
Both of those may or may not have been lower on the list than what one would expect.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, so much for tuning in for that.
No, it was a lot of fun though, and it I can't say surprising because I feel that, like, to a degree, all three of us, you, Kevin, and I, are kind of used to having marginalized opinions on certain things.
Right.
And so it's like, well, that doesn't really surprise me that much.
Well, it is important to, I think, not, and this, with us both being podcast hosts, this may go against the grain here, but here's the thing. I love having people that have their own podcasts on my show because obviously, like, you already have an audience that listens to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that, will be like, oh, well, I don't want to have another guy on my show to plug his podcast. I want somebody on here that does something else. It's like, well, yeah, that's cool and all. Like, that's fine to do too, but it's like, obviously, you have an audience that likes to listen to podcasts, and I don't know anybody that listens to just one podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it is good to get out of the echo chamber, and that's with anything, So it's very easy to get caught up in that if you have like a small group of friends and you all feel a certain way about a certain thing. It's really good to like bring some other opinions in there pretty often because like I said, that echo chamber effect is powerful. I mean, like I hate the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but like somebody out there likes it, and whatever. Like I'm not mad at them for liking it.
Yeah, and it's like you would never shun or stop that person from saying that on your podcast.
Right. I wouldn't invite them back, but I mean, I would never stop. I wouldn't stop them.
And not to make things like too morbid here, because this is going to be like just a really short, fun episode here. But like, you talk about like the dangers of echo chambers, and like just a couple of days ago, I was talking with a coworker about that, and it was like, man, echo chambers. That's how things like QAnon and Flat Earth get started and spread.
Oh, right. Or not to get too political here, but that's like the people that think like that like the election was stolen, and they think that because it's like, oh well, everybody that I know agrees with me,
right?
And it's like, so how could these many people have voted for something I didn't vote for? Well, guess what? Like your circle is your circle, and you probably have a tendency to gravitate like-minded people towards you, and you can't grow like that. I mean, I have a lot of friends that I disagree with on several levels about a lot of things. When we do this Black Adam review in a second, it's going to add another one to our list, I feel like. So, it is always important to have differing opinions in there. You can entertain and listen to an opinion without, like, integrating it into your opinion.
Right.
That's a sign of somebody who is mature and capable of growth and, into, like, introspection, basically, like, being able to evaluate yourself and your ideas and your beliefs. If your ideas and beliefs don't stand up to being challenged about anything, whether it's political views or religious views or which superhero you like, whatever. If your beliefs don't stand up to being challenged, then your beliefs aren't that good.
1,000% agree. And when you say that, got me thinking. By the way, guys, if you have not checked out an Devar review, you definitely need to do that. Caleb has been having like a circuit of recurring guests come on that podcast to discuss House of the Dragon. Of course, like the latest, one of the latest, hottest fantasy shows out there right now. Of course, Rings of Power is as well, but House of the Dragon being like something that predates Game of Thrones by quite some time.
I have to correct you though. HOTD doesn't stand for House of the Dragon.
Oh.
It stands for Hotness of the Daemon.
Yeah, I've been getting it wrong all this time, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, they've changed the show. But I'm glad you bring that up because we are going to have this big blowout episode, and you're going to be on it.
Yes.
Next week. I'm super excited for it. We're doing like a special video format for that. It's going to be on audio-only platforms as well. But it's going to be fantastic. We're going to have a big panel of like a bunch of the guests that have been on, yourself included. The homie Oz that you've heard right here on this show is going to be there. And then our good friend Lauren from Coffee and Lore is going to be on there as well. And she's like our like Westerosi kind of lore expert. So I'm very interested to hear what she's got to say and what everybody's thoughts are on the finale. So I'm very hyped for it.
Man, that's saying something, about Lauren there, because like I always look to you as like my Westerosi expert, but because I've listened to every episode on Any Bar Review, Entertainment Evolved, and I'm like, man, like she knows her shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool to be around these people that like have this really in-depth knowledge of things. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and they were like, well, you're the Tolkien expert around here. And I was like, well, actually, our friend Kay is actually, I was like, she is actually the Tolkien expert around here. So, I know a lot of things, but, like, nobody knows everything, right?
Right.
My knowledge does not go as deep as theirs into those particular, subjects. So it is really nice to have, like I was just saying earlier, like a really nice mix of ideas and knowledge, because you can't read every book in the world or watch every show or listen to every podcast or whatever. So.
Oh yeah, you fry your brain out, like
right, yeah,
it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody in my friend group thinks that I'm like the Sanderson guy.
Yep,
and I am, but like the podcast that I listen to, those people, they're like, I mean, that universe, they blow me out of the water. I mean, they think about things and know stuff that I just, like, I'm not even on that level. So,
See, yeah, to me, that's insanity.
Right. Yeah, because I could sit here and talk to you about it for the next 4 hours.
Right.
And be like, all right, man, well, that's part 1.
Yeah.
I'll be back. Be back tomorrow for part 2 of 7.
Oh, shit. And I believe you could. And that's why it blows me away to think that there's people out there. There's always somebody better. And yeah, I have to, constantly tell myself that, because like I'm a part of like a few online forums. Thankfully, they're wholesome. Just comic book forums. There's a lot of toxic forums out there that you got to avoid, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things that on our topic tonight that I liked about She-Hulk is they really like hit on that of how like you can very easily land yourself in a really fucking toxic community, and not even realize it until because like at first, like, here's the thing, none of these like cults or like super toxic communities or any of these things, they never seem like it at first,
right?
And then somebody just says something kind of off the wall, and you're like, never mind, these people are all right. And then next thing you know, you're drinking a Kool-Aid. So.
That's exactly what happened. And I have a lot of thoughts on that and what you just said there about She-Hulk in particular. But I'll go ahead and say this, and we get the podcast rolling proper. And that is like, I remember I was a part of an X-Men forum, just because the X-Men lore and like knowledge goes so fucking deep that like it's a lot,
Right.
Like I have a fair bit of X-Men books on my shelf, but I don't even have half of the collected material for the X-Men. And it's like there's so much. And so the reason I had to end up leaving this group is because long story short is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial happened. And I specifically went to this page to get away from that, because I was like, I don't even want to deal with this kid or any of that right now. Long story short, it snowballed into a discussion of, if you are not liberal and or if you are Republican, then you should not even be a part of this group. Now, here's the thing, I actually identify myself as a far leftist. However, I can't put up with a group who supposedly loves the X-Men, who is supposed to be about inclusion, and then proceeds to do everything opposite that Charles Xavier himself would want.
Right, yeah, exactly. You could never see Charles Xavier's character saying something like that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, like, he was trying to bring Magneto into the light at every possible moment. And the fact that he actually, in most of the canon, succeeds in doing that at some point,
right,
is super important to those stories to me.
1,000%. And there's a reason that it ends that way.
Now, obviously, if somebody comes on the forum saying some cracked out, like, ridiculous shit, ban them.
Yeah.
But don't just blanket be like, this is not a place for you if you don't believe like I do. I mean,
Right. I'm like, shit.
Extremism is bad in pretty much any form. I mean.
Yeah, agreed. Fandoms are supposed to be for everybody.
Right.
I think that's something that we all agree on, so it just blows my mind how that can kind of deviate from its original idea. But
especially, it's ironic, especially in that fandom.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I guarantee you that none of the people that this dude kicked out of that group or intended to kick out have done anything on the level that Magneto has done.
Right. Oh.
And Xavier's like, it's not too late, Eric.
Yeah, it's not too late. You can still change.
Right.
Oh. But with that being said, homies, welcome here to a very special shorty edition of the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and if you couldn't tell by now, I'm here by my good friend, the homie, the returning Caleb. Welcome back.
That's right, man. I'm here. I'm glad to be here. I don't know how much of a shorties episode it is with a 15-minute cold open.
Right. I was like, yeah, we'll just go like 20, 25.
You meant after the cold open.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we sipping on some yak. It's going to be a good night.
That's right.
I ain't got nowhere to be. I ain't got nothing to do.
That's right.
You got to go to work before I do, motherfucker. And it's your show. So.
But yeah, we can go ahead and get this one going here, man. She-Hulk. The good, the bad, the Hulk of the matter. So I want to go ahead and toss the ball over to you here because you've seen every episode. I've seen 6 of the 9.
Which ones did you skip?
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, that's the right answer. So, like, just to give my brief overall thoughts, man, I'll be honest with you. I thought, like, 1, 2, 3, and 4 were, like, okay. Like, they were decent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was not like I enjoyed them. It wasn't anything spectacular, but I wasn't going to turn it off. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I wasn't watching it and going, I wasted my time. I was like, oh, man, that was good. I can't wait to see what they do with the character. That's not to say I didn't have issues with it, but I'm just saying the good outweighed the bad for the first 4 for me. 5, 6, 7, terrible filler. Like, the comedy mostly didn't land. I mean, literally, because it's She-Hulk, there is a point in, like, there's like a wedding episode, and Jen literally looks at the camera and she's like, what's this? A self-contained wedding episode? And I was just like, I should turn this off right now. And 20 minutes later, I was like, yep, I should have turned it off right then because it's just garbage, filler, and it's not good. I'm going to reiterate a thing that we've said a million times, like, make the amount of content that you have story for.
That's the interesting thing because, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all. Like, I'm not saying this in a backhanded manner. I actually mean this as a compliment to the show. I appreciate that each episode is like 34 minutes long,
right,
versus an hour.
Right, because less is more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's the thing. It should be the goal of any of these products, if they intend to make more of them especially, for when it goes off, you should be thinking, wow, I really want more of that. It shouldn't be, man, I'm glad that's over. You shouldn't be like, man, I ate just enough and now I'm full.
Right.
It should be, I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah.
That's how you want to leave them at the table when you have finished serving that season finale main course. And if you're not doing that, then I think you're failing your audience. That's I don't know. I feel like for this show that probably was the case for me, but that's only because the last 2 episodes showed me what the show can be, what it has the possibilities to be, and we need more of that.
There were moments for me in this show that really showed me that, okay, they do know how to focus on Jen as a character and not a caricature.
Right.
But there were, unfortunately for me, a lot of moments where she just kind of came off as a caricature or just something that they could latch on. I don't know, something they could just latch on certain storytelling aspects to and have her kind of just carry that load. And I think that for me, the moments for me that really stood out the most were when they let Jen be vulnerable, where like when they let her kind of develop into her own character. Like I remember there was a moment in episode 4 where, she goes on a date and this guy, he only wanted to fuck She-Hulk. And so like the morning after, she's just in her Jen form, her human form. And the guy's kind of like, yeah, I'm good on that. And he just pieces out. And you can kind of see like the disappointment and heartbreak. And that makes a lot of sense. And that was something that kind of resonated, with me, because it's like you have this character who who now that she's She-Hulk, she has the opportunity to literally be everything that she wanted to be, but because Jen is so shy and introverted and withdrawn, she feels she can never be that way. When she becomes She-Hulk, the embodiment of her becoming a Hulk is that she gets to be everything that she always wanted to be. So now she's strong, she's beautiful, she's empowered. That's how it was in the comics when she was being developed. And so when we get this moment in the TV show where she gets, left by this douchebag who only wanted her because she was a Hulk, and he didn't like her for her, you can kind of see the heartbreak in her. And I was like, man, so moments like that I really appreciated because it let her be vulnerable, which gives room for growth.
Right. And there was in one of the episodes that you missed, they do have a really good moment where she ends up at Blonsky's like retreat or whatever, and they have this kind of kumbaya moment where everybody's like sharing like group therapy or whatever, and they get her to kind of admit that like what you were just talking about, like that whole arc kind of comes full circle where she admits that like it's both ways, like she's using the Hulk as a defense mechanism, but she also, while she's more comfortable as the Hulk because everybody likes her, she would much prefer that people like her for her, like that, like, it's not all like sunshine and rainbows, like she kind of explained, to Bruce in the first episode, like that she wasn't going to have these struggles that he's having. Right. And she does have a different journey than he did.
Oh, yeah.
And that is important. Because with him, I mean, it was more of like, okay, well, this dude's now, he's a hulked out rage monster. Mm-hmm. He was already like a scientist and all this other stuff. And as a woman, she is going to have different problems. And honestly, like, there's a very key difference. And don't judge me for saying this, but She-Hulk is hot. So
it's true.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm sure that there's plenty of women out there who want Hulk dick. I don't know who those women are, but they have to exist.
I mean, other than Black Widow. Right. So,
God damn it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Joss.
Yeah. Thanks. We could have gotten that, but now.
Yeah. We couldn't have lived without that.
Yeah. That was a great story aspect there.
But I there's the problem though with that episode with the retreat or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that the reason that she's stuck there is completely nonsensical. Like, she's waiting on her car to get towed. And I'm like...
You're She-Hulk.
I'm like, yeah, so two things. Number one, you're not trapped here. You can turn into the Hulk and just leap away. Or number two, you can just grab your car and take it to wherever it needs to go. So, like, there are some glaring issues like that where it's just like... I feel like the writing staff, like, the writing's just not strong in certain places. But in other places, like, the humor is really good. And it's like, the problem with this show, too, is it can't really decide what it wants to be. And I think the unique thing about this show is it can't, right? Like, it literally cannot be just one thing. Like, it can't be a legal drama. It can't be a sitcom. It can't be a superhero show. It has to be all those things. And I think you're going to have a hard time fighting talented writers that are good at all of those things.
Yeah. And man, like there were times where like I could tell they definitely struggled.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like, some of those glaring issues, like She-Hulk could literally just leave the resort. She doesn't have to stay there on that compound or whatever. There were moments like that I noticed in early episodes that I just kind of had to kind of turn that part of my brain off when watching it, because after a few episodes, like maybe after episode 3 and watching episode 4, I just kind of realized, okay, like there are obvious solutions to some of these problems. Some of these problems technically shouldn't even exist, but they're doing this to build, this self-contained story. So I'm going to try to stick with it and see where it leads me here.
Right.
Like I look at the episode with Wong when he was trying to sue not Johnny Blaze.
Right. Yeah. That was a great episode.
My issue with that was I was like, you are the Sorcerer Supreme.
Right.
And you gotta this is what we have to resort to do here, huh?
Right. It was a great episode, but it also like they had to like take Wong and like kind of make him like a comedy piece. Mm-hmm. You know, and I feel like with Wong, it's a lot like how we talked about Thor. You know, the comedy that works for Thor versus the comedy that doesn't. Wong is very similar to that. Like when he's just being Wong and he's not in on the joke, the comedy is very strong.
Oh yeah.
And unlike Thor, Wong actually can break.
He can,
a little bit. But how far is too far? And I think maybe in that episode we got a couple things that rode the line.
There were a couple things that rode the line that you could tell they did strictly for comedic purpose. There is, maybe it is the same thing as Rule of Cool, but for comedy. You know,
Rule of comedy.
Yeah, Rule of comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the fact that he just has like a random thought that he brings to Comertage.
And I'm like, part of me thinks that do you guys take like a vow of celibacy or like maybe I suppose not.
Yeah, not everybody that wears monk robes takes a vow of celibacy.
Yeah. Because I'm just saying, Doctor Strange never really wore those, and not for long. You know,
that's true. Yeah.
He's like, I don't know.
He's like, no, I'm good. Yeah. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, man. Mm-hmm. The Daredevil episode. What do you think of it?
So I overall I really like the Daredevil episode. I was curious to see how they would pull it off, just because tonally speaking, this is such a different environment that casuals and hardcore fans alike are not accustomed to seeing Matt Murdock in. You know, and so seeing him in this, I was really apprehensive at first. Kevin was sitting next to me with bated breath and deep sighs, wanting to see what the fuck was going to happen here. I ended up unclenching my butt cheeks enough to enjoy the episode.
I love the courtroom scene at the beginning where they introduce him. That's perfect.
The courtroom scene I thought was really well done. And it's funny because like during that courtroom scene, Kevin, he was asking me like, so, hey man, what was the guy who made Daredevil suit? It was like Malcolm, the Gladiator. It's like, yeah. And then I was like, I think we have like a different guy making his suits now. It's like, that's got to be the guy. Otherwise, I can't understand why Matt would work with him.
Yeah, so I think so you probably missed that episode. So in one of the episodes where she first meets this dude, they like pan over and like show the Daredevil helmet in the box when she first meets him. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you kind of already knew that he was making a Daredevil suit, and maybe it was just that suit.
Maybe
maybe that's why they differentiated and went with the yellow suit. Like maybe they wanted to have it just maybe be the specific suit, because like they're in California, right?
I was gonna ask you, they're in LA. Yeah,
I doubt he comes all the way to LA every time he's in a suit.
Right.
You know.
I mean, you got that shit shipped, Matt. I mean, I know it'd be risky, but you just say it's cosplay.
Well, maybe like after Fisk like got to the guy last time, now he's like, well, I'm gonna get somebody out of town.
And I don't want to deviate from this episode too much, but has it been fully disclosed yet what is and isn't canon from the Defenderverse?
I think that this is going to be a completely fresh deal, but here's the thing: is they can always say like the Defenders versus like it's a different multiverse.
Different multiverse, yeah.
They have that very easy little key card they can slide through there,
right?
It's just like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They can say, well, in that multiverse, Coulson was resurrected, but in the main MCU, in quote 606 quote, it was not. So they could always go that route with it. I think that's how they're going to go with it, because the rumors are, and this isn't confirmed, that they are going to get Karen and Foggy back. So, and that's, I mean, I think both of them are there's no need to recast either of them.
Agreed.
So
agreed. I like what they did with Daredevil's physicality and like his attributes and how he moved. I thought all that was excellent. Him up. They did, yeah.
If he's gonna be hanging out with the Avengers, which he is,
right?
Then they had to do a little something.
I
honestly, man, as much as I love Frank Miller's Daredevil, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, we got 30 hours of like a depressed Matt Murdock. It was kind of nice to see the man have a good time for once.
Yeah, everybody's allowed a vacation every once in a while, Matt, but I need you to go back to New York and get depressed.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just gotta, fly to LA for some snacks.
For some strange.
Yeah.
For the strangest of strange.
What did you think about the walk? The Daredevil walk of shame? Because I thought that was hilarious.
I thought it was so it was again one of those moments where I had to like turn off my brain of like, you don't have to do this, and just enjoy it for what it was.
Right.
Because it's like, because like I'm not saying that hell, if anything, I was gonna say not that I've sent women on doing the walk of shame, because most of the time I'm leaving their crib.
It's easier.
It's easier, but I'm like, the reason why I never carry my shoes is because these motherfuckers just slip on. But for them, it's usually because they were in the heels, and who wants to fucking do that in heels? I'm like, are your boots uncomfortable, Matt? You need new boots?
Yeah, when he got in there, I was like, they pulling a Kristen Cole here. He's got to spend 40
yes,
minutes taking on his arm.
Right.
It's a little House of the Dragon reference for you.
Oh, hell yeah. But I thought the walk of shame itself was. Is it really a walk? I don't think the walk of shame really exists for dudes that much. Just because
victory.
Yeah, because like
Daredevil, anyway.
Yeah, because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't matter. Like, men, we are not ashamed.
Oh well, for Matt Murdock, this is called a Tuesday anyway.
Oh yeah. And by the way, guys, like Matt Murdock, for those who don't know, yes, he may be a Catholic boy, but he be out there in them streets.
Oh yeah, he's pulling in more pussy than the pound, bro.
And so it's amazing that you don't really see a lot of Matt Murdock and She-Hulk in the comics, honestly, just because, two lawyers, in the superpower community who are very promiscuous, the both of them. Like, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often.
I gotta say though that the charisma and the chemistry between these two actors, tremendous. Like, I want to see more of them together.
Yeah, and that kind of led me back to something else here, and that is, I never had any doubt about Tatiana Maslany. She's fantastic. I don't know if you've ever seen any Orphan Black.
I have not, but I've heard that it's very good.
It is very good, and for her to do what she did in that show, it requires an extreme amount of range because she's literally playing so many different characters.
Right.
And I do wish that she was allowed to show more range here in this show. But I remember even from episode 1, one thing that really irked me was that, man, personality-wise, there's just no difference between Jen and She-Hulk. It'd be different if she started off as maybe more reserved, more introverted, maybe more mousy. And then when she becomes She-Hulk, she acquires that full personality that we see. But it's kind of like she has that full personality with or without the She-Hulk form. And that was one thing that kind of irked me as well, because it's not just a part of the character of Jen, but it's also part of that classic hero's journey,
Right. And I know there were some concerns, like when we saw the first episode, it's like, they're not going to do this, are they? But I really loved all of the struggles that they put her through and, like, the journey that she went on. I mean, it wasn't always perfect, don't get me wrong. I had my issues with it. But I think, like, if you look at She-Hulk at the beginning of the season versus the end of the season, I really like the path that she was on and, like, the growth that she had as a character. And that finale, man, I thought that it was just so well done, because there's that moment where you think it's going to go completely off the rails, and then they were playing with us the whole time.
Before we move on to the finale, I will say this also about the penultimate episode. I really loved how she took out Daredevil with the thunderclap, because that just makes all the sense in the world.
Yes, tremendous fight scene.
Yeah, it was a great fight scene, and I'm like, of course, like that's going to be the thing that would take down Daredevil.
Oh yeah, it'll fuck him right up.
Yeah, fuck his shit all the way up.
Yeah.
And then also just again seeing Charlie Cox pull off this more kind of I won't say more charismatic, but more upbeat Matt Murdock. It was refreshing to see. Now Disney needs to remember this. I don't need to see 18 episodes of that.
Correct.
But it was really nice to see him have a good day.
Yeah, I need to see this man go through some shit.
Right.
He can get some strange every now and then, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. That's what keeps you happy, you know?
Right, yeah. I think we definitely will see her cameo in his show after this.
Yeah.
At a bare minimum, we'll get him in season 2 of She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Because Charlie Cox seems like he's on board for everything.
Oh, well, it seems like Marvel is on board to have him for everything.
They should.
They should be.
They're like, oh man, we really, we own this. Everyone likes this. We should probably put this guy in the movies. I mean, I think we're going to see him in both the Avengers movies, no doubt.
I mean, that would be a very smart thing to do.
Right, yeah.
And also, just a quick sidebar, Wilson Bethel, the guy who played Bullseye in season 3 of Daredevil, I would love to see him come back as well. I thought he was fantastic.
That was by far the best version of Bullseye that I think we're ever going to get.
Yeah, that almost sounded like a backhanded compliment because I'm like, there's not a whole lot of good comparisons.
Well, no, I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, both of the fights that he had with Matt in that show.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous. Yeah. I mean, the first fight they have in that office.
Oh.
That's got to be in probably the top 10 at least. It's definitely top 20, but probably top 10 superhero fights.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, tremendous.
It was so well done.
I mean, it was so good that Rick and Morty did the parody of it in the
they did
in the Pickle Rick episode.
Yes. I did not put that together until you just said that. Wow.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the finale a little bit here now. So I have to be honest, I did not like the finale.
So in a vacuum, though, the fourth wall break part, did you like that? Did you think it was that it was fitting for the character?
I thought it was. I thought that was actually quite fitting. I think I may have shared this with you, but one of the big story arcs by John Byrne had her break the fourth wall to the extent where she hopped out of the panel as he was drawing it, and she attacks him, John Byrne, for not letting her have a good relationship. Like everything else is in tragedy. Like this to me was kind of a microcosm of that. Like it kind of had that same kind of flair to it, so I wasn't mad at that. But I think the reason why I didn't like the episode as a whole, there's a couple reasons. One, because it didn't feel like it was about Jen overcoming anything, in so much as it was about I couldn't even tell you. Like I'm not sure exactly what the overall theme or messaging here of the final episode was. Yes, there just wasn't like a whole. It seemed to me like for the finale, they kind of threw everything at the wall and prayed that something would stick. And I'm like, this is so fucking weird and off the rails. I don't know where to go. So again, I'm not upset at like what they did with that whole idea of having, her break the fourth wall to that extent. Like that was actually very clever. But I think it's something that maybe they should have done either earlier on, not for a finale, just because for it to be a finale, I don't know. It just, there was no real resolution because there was no real major threat. And I think that's what bothered me the most.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really like that they just kind of changed it where like the cops like showed up and arrested the guy.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel to an extent like it was anticlimactic, but it also felt like it was fitting as well. Obviously, I loved Marvel kind of poking fun at themselves and at Phase 4 and everything, and the Kevin Feige robot was hilarious, and like her kind of being like just them being self-aware and being like all these things end the same way, and like what's up with all the daddy issues,
right?
And, all of that stuff. That's the parts of it that I really enjoyed. I thought that like them having Bruce like be gone most of the season and like randomly show up with his kids, Scar.
Scar, yeah.
It's very Disney of them. I know that it wasn't from that, but it's just funny now.
Right.
Somebody at home's like, the hell? But yeah, I thought that was weird, especially like since they didn't have Scar, but for like 10 seconds or whatever, not even 10 seconds. Another thing that's weird for me is like how good the Hulk CG still looks compared to everything else.
And it also seemed like to be like Scar kind of existed just so there'd be a CG model that made She-Hulk look better.
Right, yeah, because like you could tell they rendered that. The VFX team just threw that shit together.
Oh yeah, it was. And like you said, thank goodness he was only there for like a blink and you miss it kind of cameo.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, there were some things I liked about this finale. Like we mentioned at the top of this episode, I liked how they looked at like all those echo chamber, in this case, kind of incel type groups that just like the bottom of the barrel of quote unquote men in this kind of society that we're in. And I'm like, you guys are all the fucking worst of the worst. Like, ew.
Yeah. I love all the red flags in there.
Yeah, but see, what I didn't like was the fact that there were moments throughout the entire season, but also in this episode, that felt like any criticisms of anything that they mentioned meant that you were also in that category. And I'm like, oh, and that kind of goes back to something that we've spoken about before.
I'll challenge you on that, though.
Okay.
Was Marvel saying that, or is it more that the toxic fans on the other side of that fence tend to say that? Because I don't feel like Marvel was saying it.
No, I feel like Marvel was kind of saying that because again they did it multiple times. I think maybe in episode 2 or 3, maybe episode 2, when it was like a quick blinking and miss type thing. I think it was on the internet on the episode. Where they were like, "Oh, She-Hulk, she's just a fucking blah 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 of the Hulk,"
Yeah.
And like, "Oh, Jesus fucking Christ!"
I love that those were all real comments, though.
Oh yeah. Those are all definitely real comments, but it's like, how many of those were from the toxic assholes, and how many of those were from people who are like, "Well, if you want to make this better, then you just have to do X, Y, and Z." But we live in a society online where like any type of criticisms gets copied in all together. Right. So like if you have a legit criticism or if you're a fucking bigoted misogynist, you're all together now. It's like, I don't want to be next to you.
And it goes both ways too, where it's like, so it's one thing to see somebody say, I like a thing, and then like berate that person for it. Like that's wrong.
That's toxic.
Yeah, that's toxic as fuck. But if you say, I like this thing, and I say, I didn't like it, that's not toxic. Mm-hmm. I have just as much of a right to say that I don't like it as you have to say that you do.
Right.
And so what's happening is the people that do like the thing, they get pissed because you don't like the thing, and then they become the toxic one.
Yeah.
And so it's on both sides of the fence.
It is.
I experienced this about the sequel trilogy a lot back when people were still defending it. They really don't do it anymore, though, so...
Kind of quieted down there.
Yeah, it got real quiet.
Yeah,
real fast.
Yeah. But and also I guess the other thing as well is like the people there that really would have like gotten under and fucked with. In other words, like the actual trolls who they're mentioning. I'm like, I don't think those dickheads would even watch.
Right. Especially not that far.
Yeah.
They probably hated the first episode.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, so it was an interesting aspect to take it, but I understand why they did it. It was just something that I don't know. It felt a little heavy-handed at times. It's like you could have eased up on that a little bit, and maybe put a little bit more focus on, like. And I know like the whole idea of the finale is like they wanted to not subvert expectations, but they wanted to do something different. And but I can't help but wonder if my original idea for what I thought they were going to do for this show came to fruition, it would have been a lot of fun, which is She-Hulk finding a way to take down Abomination. Thought that would have been a lot of fun. Would have been a cool fight. It would have been brutal. But yeah, the show decided to go a completely different direction.
I was glad to see it, honestly. Like, when they were going to do the big fight and they decided not to, like,
oh yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen the way they set it up. Just because, like, You mentioned this recently on the Rough Cut about how the word cringe is kind of a the new buzzword, the new epic.
Right.
But it would have felt cringe had they decided to go through with that the way they set it up.
What's the actual villain's name? Is it Josh?
Todd.
Todd.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a fucking
It's
Todd?
a fucking Todd.
Oh, man.
It's always a
It's
Todd.
always a fucking
God.
Todd, man. I really thought when he injected himself that he was just going to get like one big beefy Trogdor arm and like the rest of him was just going to stay normal.
A part of me thought he might have just exploded. Honestly,
Yeah.
like
Some Willy Wonka's chocolate
Right.
factory shit. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I am glad they went that way. I don't know that it would have fit in with like the kind of arc for Blonsky that they had if they would have had him go full on Abomination and have them fight and everything. I don't know. It could have been interesting to just have him be faking all that shit.
I was praying he was.
And it's not too late for them to do that arc. If they do another
Yeah.
season, which I think they will, I would really love to see them do something like, have like a more centralized villain throughout. And now that, the show's kind of established what it is, I think they have the right and the ability to do that. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked the changed Emil. I know you hated it, but I really love the like laid back, just kind of like peace and love and hair grease Emil Blonsky.
Yeah. So She-Hulk. That was She-Hulk, guys.
All right, man. So you got to rate it. What do you give the season?
Oh my gosh. Man, like this season, I think overall it does more good than not. Which sometimes that's all you can ask for. I come from an era where CW shows were all we had for superheroes.
My God.
And so I am still just thankful for what we can get. But with that being said, that there are still just so many things that I view as like being flaws or missed opportunities at best. The show is, I don't think it's the worst, but I think it's far from being the best, relatively speaking. I think from right now, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
That is incredibly interesting because I actually was thinking a 6. That's actually what I was thinking of giving it. But I watched those 3 terrible ass episodes that you skipped.
Oh, I was like, wow.
So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, it's like if I had to rate just the last 2 episodes,
Yeah.
I'd probably give it like an 8.5. But the show as a whole, man, it's like it's unforgivable to me to have 9 episodes and 3 of them are mostly filler, not well written. They don't feel relevant. The main character comes out and tells you one of them is filler. It's like, and what was the chick that
Titania? Yeah.
Why was she even in this?
Yeah, that was another one who, like, when I saw in the trailer, I was like, we're gonna get an epic Titania She-Hulk fight. I'm like,
that happens at the wedding. It's
okay.
It's not really that epic.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
Gotcha,
But like, yeah, I'm just like, I don't know why she was in there. Maybe she's gonna come back and do something cool later on. I don't know.
Well, if they're doing the Secret Wars movie, and, she was a player in that comic book, so
When Jen is like, when Kevin is like, you're going to the big screen, she's like, really? He's like, no.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how that's gonna go. That was hilarious.
That part was hilarious. that
I love that he voiced him and that he had the little baseball cap
right. God damn. Yeah.
That's why Phase 4 feels so generic and cookie cutter.
They got
being written by a fucking robot.
It could have been manatees,
Oh no, it's too good for that. It's not manatees. Those couple episodes of She-Hulk could have been written by manatees. But yeah, man. I mean, here's the thing. Giving it a 6, that means it's above average. I said this when I gave you guys are on board with it. But I gave the Batman a 7.5. I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was flawed. I have serious issues with it, but I liked it overall. 7.5 is a great score. If you're going to go off of 5 being average, a 7.5 means it's like considerably above average.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I enjoyed the show. I would watch a season 2, but I really hope that they're able to capitalize on the hits and eliminate some of the misses when they do that.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with like a serialized format like they did, or like a sitcom procedural type format that they went for. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with having a looming threat in the background as well to tie everything together. So,
and they should just go ahead and make her like a multi-million-dollar render like they have for Bruce.
Yeah, let's get on that.
So
seriously.
that she can be in like Avengers for like even if it's just for a little bit,
Oh, could you imagine if that model had shown up in like Endgame fighting Thanos?
Yeah, everyone would just been like, Thanos like stops the battle. He's like, "Who brought this shitty CG out here? Get this out of here!"
Like, look at her hair. He just plucks her hair off her head. Like, look at this.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, y'all got one of the Sims on the Avengers now. Like, what are we doing here? Cap's like, I don't know where she came from.
Yeah, I don't know. She's like, that's America's ass.
I did love that when her phone leaked, there was like a whole bunch of pictures of Captain America. I lost my mind. They should have thrown one of the Chris Evans memes on there.
Well, that is all I have for She-Hulk. Now, you got anything else before we wrap this one up?
Nah, man, I'm good. On to the next one.
On to the next one, as they say. Well, homies, I hope you guys enjoyed this quote-unquote shorty episode as we reviewed She-Hulk here. But yeah, well, what's the next MCU TV show?
It's got to be Secret Invasion, right?
It's got to be. Is that still this year or next year?
I want to say it's next year.
Damn it. Okay, yeah.
Because Disney's got Star Wars planned for the whole rest of the year.
That's right. That's right. So. Yeah. All right. Well, then, yeah. I guess within a few weeks' time, I'm going to force Kevin to watch some more of these MCU TV shows here, so that we can put together a fair list from worst to best, what we think, and that'll be real interesting here. To see where things go. We will probably exclude Werewolf by Night because it's that weird kind of just hour-long special, not a TV show, not a movie. So
it's going to be interesting when Miss Marvel is not on the bottom of either of those
lists. And this really depends on like how much sway I have over Kevin. You know,
that's true.
Yeah. Because I may have to. You got to give a little to get a little sometimes, you know.
That's true. Yeah. You might have to go rock climbing or something.
All right. Well, that's going to be all for this one, guys. Thank you guys for listening in, and be sure to check out our review of Black Adam. I don't have one of those air horn buttons, but that was my impersonation of one.
Too bad.
Oh, thank you.
I liked it,
yeah. But that's going to be all for now. We will see you guys next time. But until then, my name is Superhero Homie Q.
And I'm Superhero Homie Caleb.